BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor and take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward. Let's get into it. Thanks for checking out today's episode. My interview today is with former quarterback Grant Stucker. He was a high school state champion at Ponderosa and then goes on to play Division I college football at Colorado State. But his power of resiliency is the big takeaway in today's message. He had to sit 5 years before he was able to take his first snap. And we talk through everything from going to win that state championship in high school to the trials and tribulations of playing college football. He's taken a lot of that skill set into his business and professional world today as a husband and a father, and you're going to be inspired by the path that he took and how he was able to overcome. Let's do this. On today's episode of the BTB Project. Today's guest has one of the most remarkable journeys I've come across as an athlete. His love for football was evident from an early age at Ponderosa High School in Parker, Colorado, which during his high school career, he led his team to a state championship, and as a junior, set the school record for throwing yards of 2,400. His excellence wasn't limited to football alone. Throughout his high school years, he proved to be a versatile athlete, earning 3 varsity letters in football, 2 in basketball, and another in baseball. It seems that athletic prowess runs in the family. His dad, Pat, was an offensive tackle at Air Force, and his cousin, Lyle, played football at Colorado A&M in the 1940s. Taking his talents to the next level, he played college football at Colorado State University, and as a fifth-year redshirt, he started for the program, and his first win was against the University of Colorado, which he made a significant impact as a quarterback. Grant Stucker, welcome to the BTB Project.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Coleman Gerhardt. A former athlete and motivational coach, I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land.
It's always fun for me on the BTB Project to circle back with people in my life that have been just a tremendous impact and folks that I was able to grow up with. And it's just a tremendous honor today to have someone that got to go to college up north like I did, but they were in a town called Fort Collins instead of Greeley, and they were doing exceptional things as a football player. And a tremendous honor to bring Grant Stucker to the BTB Project. Welcome, man.
Thanks for having me, man. I love the setup you got here. This is awesome. Love the in-person feel. I mean, likewise, we knew each other in high school, and I remember great conversations back then, and it's great to finally come full circle here and have a conversation about a lot of it and how all those things have impacted both of us, decisions and everything and impacts that have happened to us back then and how that has framed where we are today and the trajectory of where we're going. So, no, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And the ability to go back to, as we were talking before we hopped on, I mean, it's been about 13 years since you took a snap in college, and a lot of time has passed, and I'm a family guy. You're a family guy now. And, there's so many things that we experience in today's life that a lot of the things we experienced as athletes growing up have kind of give us some of those foundational things that we've needed to be husbands and fathers in our lives. And I want to go back actually to, a funny story of when you were in high school and I actually had just graduated. And I just remember you guys getting to that state championship football game. And I can't quite remember where you guys are playing it, but you can definitely fill the listeners in. But I remember not having too much money at that point in my life, and I couldn't get a ticket. So there I was on the outside of the fence trying to jump to see if I could see some maroon helmets, hopefully going towards the side of the field that allowed them to get a field goal or a touchdown. And I just remember the clock strike 0, and you guys were state champions. Grant, I'd love for you to take us back to what it meant to you to bring Ponderosa High School a state championship.
Oh man, 20 years ago. I mean,
right.
It's actually a very coincidental podcast because this year they're actually, Ponderosa is doing a 20-year reunion for the state championship.
Oh, wow.
On their 40th anniversary of the school. So I want to say it's like August 25th. They're doing like their opening game. They're doing a 40th celebration and then a tribute to the 20th anniversary of the last state championship that they had. It was at the Stutler Bowl in Cherry Creek.
Yes.
That was before the days where they had it at Mile High and all the things that the kids get to do now. Yeah, Stutler Bowl in Cherry Creek on the old turf. It was like the carpet turf, like AstroTurf. So everybody was wearing like, not cleats, right? They were wearing like tennis shoes.
Oh, wow.
And we never, like, we went that whole season never playing on like an AstroTurf type field. So it was like everybody had new different shoes. Like they were wearing their sneakers and stuff. So
was everyone trying to like grind down their cleats from Douglas County Stadium to be ready for the Sutler Bowl?
I mean, I'm sure everybody had what they were trying to get accomplished there. But yeah, it was. I mean, that season in its own right was a roller coaster of different things because the opening game of my senior year, I got hurt and dislocated my SC joint of my collarbone. And I can't remember if it was my right or left because I did the same thing in college, which I think we'll get to. Missed pretty much half the season of that year, and I was just like, it was supposed to be a huge senior year for me, and it just was detrimental. When I came back, we started just winning games, and we were putting together a great run, and we started playing just our best football right when the playoffs came, and we just felt like we could beat anybody. Just everything was clicking. That's the old wing T, option, triple option offense. That was just like, if you're running it right, everybody's doing their responsibilities correct. Like that, just very few people can beat you.
Right.
Playing really well. And then our third game was a semifinal game against Mullen.
Oh yeah.
And Mullen was unbeaten, top team in the state. And they had some killer players.
Now, was that when Dave Logan was coaching there?
Dave Logan was there.
Yeah.
And we were gearing up for a game plan that was ready for them. About an hour before the game, it was like blue skies, like green turf at Douglas County Stadium. And then a huge snowstorm came in, and it was a blizzard, like a whiteout, could not see the lines in the field for the game.
Jeez.
And so, I mean, that definitely served better to our game because we were run and gun, very little pass, and we just reverted back to just being true wing T, no shotgun, no trickery or anything like that. And we just it fit our game plan much better than it fit theirs. I remember looking, it was like start of the third quarter. I think we were winning either 7-0 or 14-0. And we were on our sidelines, and there was a bunch of guys that were like huddled around some of the heaters, but everybody, there's nobody had coats. It was like everybody looked like they were in their pads and stuff. And then we looked across the field, and every player had like these really nice like parka over your shoulder pads, like coats.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're gonna beat these guys. Like we're tougher than they are, you know. And I'm sure that'll rub some people wrong. I actually played against some guys in that game that I ended up playing with at CSU.
Okay,
but
funny.
that was a huge moment for us. And right after that happened, when we won that game, we were like, there's no stopping us. We're gonna go and beat. And so we played Overland in the championship game. And it was a beautiful sunny day. We were playing on that AstroTurf, and we just had a great game plan. I remember the opening drive, we got the ball, and it was like a 15-play, like 8 minutes off the clock, just methodical drive. And we scored that first touchdown. I was like, we've got this. We're just going to play our game. We've got this. But it was emotional. I mean, it was like, you know, the culmination. Like usually you get to the end, a lot of seasons, no matter what sport you're playing, the last game you lose. That's the only time in my entire career we played the last game and we won. So it's like, what am I supposed to feel like in this moment, knowing that there's no more football to be played, but like we won?
Right.
So it was like an overwhelming feeling for me at the time to know that we did it. Like we as a team came together, won a championship for the first time in the school's history, and still. So
yeah, it's interesting for me because growing up, and I know that we're a few years apart, growing up, Grant, I had a lot of people in the strength and conditioning program through Ponderosa when I was coming into high school that, you know, saw my body, you know, 6'1", you know, mid 200 pounds. And they were like, man, that's an offensive or defensive lineman right there. Right. So I got pushed pretty hard to play football. And I played 1 year of football at Parker Vista in middle school, and I was a long snapper, and I just remember it was like second or third game that I played. My assignment was to snap the ball and then go down and try to tackle the person receiving the punt. And so I snapped the ball, I get out of the line, I'm running down, and out of nowhere I get sideswiped, and my head just hits the ground and big time concussion. And I'm like, okay, someone hand me some tennis balls instead of this whole football thing, right?
So unexpected. I don't like this. I don't like this.
Yes, I ended up pivoting, but you know, it makes me think back though to just the kind of uniqueness that we had at Ponderosa, because I felt like our strength and conditioning program, I felt like the football program, I felt like the wrestling program, just the area of Parker and how we were situated. It was very blue collar. It was very kind of like, you know, put the corn husk in your mouth and put on some overalls and like get to work. And I just would love for you to speak to, as much as it was amazing to win that last game, what did it mean to you to reflect on the process? Because that stuff doesn't happen overnight, man. So maybe you could plant some seeds of what it took as a team to get to that point to be competitive at the state level.
No, I think a lot to unpack there, right? I think that all these different things that Ponderosa at the time represented, it was definitely like a perfect storm of certain aspects that had come into play at the right times that then did, like for us as a football team, culminated into this championship. If I could go back just a minute in how I got started in the football world, you mentioned that you had started in the Parker Vista, which I think I went to the same school, but they renamed it Sierra Middle School, right?
Correct. Yep.
Even before then, I remember I used to play flag football as a kid, like a little kid, you know, and in your intro, you know, you said that I had developed this love for football at a young age. Wasn't that young, because my love for football got developed in high school for sure. Before that, there was a very questionable relationship with football. So when I was I played flag football, and a lot of my friends, like I want to say it was when I was in third grade, everybody went into tackle. And in flag football, I was still, you know, quarterback playing then. When we went into tackle, I was so jazzed to get into doing tackle football. But I learned very quickly that you have to rely on a lot of other people to protect you, to give you time, to throw a football. And at that age, when you're just learning how to stand on a line and block somebody else, like there's not a lot of protection that happens. So I got hit a lot when I was in third grade, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I mean, it was just like I was never ready for it. So I told my parents like midway through the season, I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I don't like this football stuff.
Now, were you a Parker Hawks guy?
I was Hawks, yeah.
Okay,
I was Hawks, and then they were like, okay, well, we need to finish the season. You can't quit. I always remember my parents saying they can't quit. But maybe we'll talk to the coach and see if we can like develop some different types of rollout plays for you, so you can take the snap and like actually be running and throwing on the run. And I was always kind of known as more of a dual threat kind of quarterback, where I could use my legs to get out of trouble, and I could have some dedicated plays that I am running. So we got through the season, but after that I was like, I'm done. I don't want to play again. So 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, I did not play football. No football at all. No flag football, no nothing. But my primary sport was baseball and basketball.
Gotcha.
And then when I was in 8th grade, I went from Sierra to Sagewood. And Sagewood was the new middle school feeder to Ponderosa.
Yep.
And I left a lot of friends that I was playing baseball with and basketball with and previously football with because I wanted to go play sports at Ponderosa. At the time, Chaparral was brand new.
Yep.
My sister was one of the first graduating classes. She's only a couple of years older than me. She's pretty similar to your age.
Okay, yep.
I for various reasons didn't want to go through that program that way. I had other friends that were doing the same thing I was going to do. They had older brothers that went to Ponderosa, like the Tommy Pasks of the world, the Cody Mileys of the world. And so there was always this history and long-standing excellence of football, basketball, baseball, just sports. Wrestling was a big, so I knew like the athletic direction under Tim Ottman at the time was just phenomenal.
And a legend, by the way.
Legend, right?
Yes.
So I think in the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame. So I made that decision to open a roll into Sagewood. We were still living in Stonegate in like the Chaparral side of the world. And my friends were all asking me like, why are you going over there? Why are you going over there? And I didn't know what else to tell them. I told them we're moving over there. Like my family's like thinking about moving over there. So and they were like, oh, okay. But we never were thinking about moving. And we never did. My parents stayed in that house for 25 years. And so I went to 8th grade, Sagewood, played baseball and basketball, did a little bit of track, and then came into my freshman year at Ponderosa. And I was getting pressured again from a lot of my friends. Hey, you got to come play football. So I was like, all right, I'm going to come play, but I'm not going to be a quarterback because I don't want to do that. And they were like, yeah, whatever. Like, just come out and try out and play. And I was like, okay. So I went out and made the freshman team. For somebody who, when I was a kid, did not like getting hit, I liked hitting other people. It was kind of an age where I came into enjoying that kind of contact where I could, and I was getting bigger. I was probably around 5'10" to 6 feet when I was a freshman, like one of the taller people on the team. And so I was a linebacker and I was a wide receiver.
Wow. And
I enjoyed it. It wasn't like I had found this new passion though. I enjoyed it and I was like, yeah, but my passion I think was still in baseball. And so I'll never forget my sophomore year, Mark Murphy, the offensive coordinator.
Oh yeah.
Another legend, right, who really developed that whole offense over there with them. He came up to me, it felt like randomly at school, and he was like, Grant, I understand you used to play quarterback. And I was like, dude, when I was in 3rd grade. And he was like, well, some of your buddies have said that you've got a good arm, you play baseball, right, you pitch. And he was like, we need a backup quarterback. We have a starter, he's a senior, is Dustin Green.
Yeah.
We need somebody that's going to be his backup. So like, why don't you come try it? And I was like, Coach, I don't want to go out there and get hit every play. Like, it's just not what I really want to do. And I never remember he said this. He looked at me, he says, son, this is varsity football. You'll be protected. And I was like, okay, it's enough for me. It's good enough for me. So that fall I tried out and was Dustin's backup. Dustin got hurt. That was a phenomenal team. So Byron Kiphart was running back. Let's see, Gus Miley was on that team, and Tyler Crisp, like some really like great offensive lineman names. Nicoletto, and Nick actually ended up going to play for BYU.
That's right.
And I was always like, I was never on the number ones. Like I was always taking snaps with the number twos. And that was a phenomenal team. They were undefeated. And we went into playing Arapahoe High School in the game of the week, because Arapahoe, I think at the time, was undefeated too. 9 News stuff all over the place. And like there was a helicopter that flew over at one time. And Dustin got hurt in the game. He was running the ball down the sideline and got tackled like on his leg.
Oh no.
And like broke his the smaller one in his leg, not the big shin bone, but the one that's behind it next to your Achilles, tibia or something like that, I think, or fibula. I don't know. I don't know those.
Didn't pass anatomy class.
Didn't pay too much attention. It was a bone that was broken in his leg. So I went in and I was like wide-eyed, like and bushy-tailed, like just did not. I was scared. I mean, I was like, this is serious stuff. All they told me was just get the snap, hand it to Byron. Just get the snap, hand it to Byron. And Byron, like, I feel like he ran for 200 and some odd yards in that game. Was just like he was carrying us on his shoulders. And I think I had like one pass for a screen that we did complete, and it was a first down. So that was like my only like really good play of the game. It came down to the wire that we had gone down, scored to go ahead. Yeah. And we were about to, the extra point was going to put us 3 points ahead. And I don't think I've ever told Gus Miley this, because he was also the kicker.
I remember that.
But Dustin was the holder. Like, so the starting quarterback was also the holder. So Dustin's out. Now I'm the one that has to go in and hold for the extra point. At the time, we had you could put a little tee down.
Okay.
Like a flat tee, and like you could grab the ball and like elevate the ball so you could actually kick. I don't know if they allow that anymore, but I remember getting the snap and just fumbling like crazy with it, and then trying to put it on the tee. I don't know if I put it on the tee, and my hand was definitely in the way when Gus kicked that ball and we missed the extra point. Gus was like, "What happened?" And I was just like, "I don't know, man. I don't know." Like I was just so nervous, and I couldn't even handle the ball. And so Arapahoe went down, and they had a really good drive, and their kicker missed the field goal, and we won.
Wow.
And I was like, we got out of there like by her hair on our chinny chin chin, right? So the next week, I was practicing all with the number ones, and the next week was playing Chaparral against all of my old teammates that I just left, 2 years earlier. And I knew a lot of those guys on the other side of the ball really, really well. And they knew where I lived, in Stonegate. So there was a couple of, pieces of toilet paper around the yard that my parents had to clean up. I wasn't driving at the time, so nobody like ransacked my car or anything. But I was 15.
Jeez.
We went out, and I'm pretty sure they thought that they were going to put a hurting on us because we lost Dustin, and I like didn't play that great in that first Arapahoe game, and we went out and destroyed them. Like it was a blowout.
Wow.
I mean, and I had a really good game, and it was that game that I was like, I could do this. This makes sense.
So it's interesting. You say third grade, you have this experience where you get hit and you're like, this might not be for me. And you had, parents and people speaking into your life saying, hey, you hold on to this. And then you come to high school and a coach brings you back into the QB world. It's really interesting how life takes these unexpected turns, because a lot of people that I've talked to on the podcast who have done just these unbelievable things athletically and in their life, like there's no playbook on how to do it.
Right.
And I think it's really neat, and I'm excited to hear from you on, that moment where you're playing Chaparral and it finally clicks. What did it feel like playing the next game and the game after that? Did you feel like a QB, or did you feel like someone that didn't totally love playing QB at that point still?
No, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. It just felt like I stepped into somebody else's body, that I was like, this is your space now for the next however long you want it to be. And as long as you are doing the right things to, study playbooks, take care of your body, lift weight, do all the things to make sure you're preparing yourself, like this is yours for a while. I definitely felt like it was like, this is going to be my new love of sport. Like, and that was tough to say because I feel like I was a pretty good baseball player. If I didn't find that in football at that point in time, I think I would have really, tried my hand at baseball. It just clicked, and I was getting a lot of good recognition from a lot of the teammates. I'm like senior, like Byron, Ren Ross, and Dustin Green, who like had gotten hurt, and like all these guys that I had looked up to when I was a kid were coming to me saying like, you're a leader on this team, like you're doing all the right things. And it's just like that whole, everything that came together that sophomore year was just like, it created this new love for football. Yeah. And I could now see like, okay, what's the next step of like doing football, and like, how do I prepare for the next game? And then how do I prepare us for playoffs? And how do I prepare us for off-season stuff of focusing on football? And then, and the next year of all that stuff. So right. Yeah, it definitely, that was a moment that clicked where I found the new love for that sport.
Well, obviously, bringing a state championship to Ponderosa and kind of being on all cylinders and having a good team around you led you to a tremendous amount of success in high school. And I want to kind of pivot to post-high school recruiting process. And eventually I know it was Colorado State, which ironically my dad went to Colorado State. They back in the day had a men's tennis team. And I remember they made him run a mile 6 months into the season. And after they made him run a mile, he quit playing tennis. But nonetheless, I would love for you to tell the listeners about, being a high school state champion and what that meant for the recruiting process. And was CSU always the school that was high on your radar, or were there some other ones you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think CSU was always high on the radar, mostly because at the time they had a ton of success, and they were a local university, right? It was like local state school, and I loved Fort Collins. I mean, just beautiful campus, beautiful scenery, a lot of great people. After we had won, so I guess leading up to all of that, one of the things that we had when I was at Ponderosa was our offense was not really known for like a lot of passing, get a lot of stats, get yourself recognized kind of offense, right? We were a run and gun type team. It was a wing tee offense. We actually incorporated some shotgun and a little bit of West Coast, but not a lot that would get you statistically noticed throughout the country. So right. My approach as I was kind of going through the potentials of, with my dad of like, maybe that next level is something that you could strive to get to, being some type of college football somewhere. We started thinking about, okay, well, we can't just focus on our little bubble of preparing for the next season with Ponderosa strength and conditioning. Like, let's look outside and say, like, let's go to a CSU camp, let's go to a CU camp, and see what those, like, how that goes before my junior year. So I did that and started to see like what it really takes to be in the next level of football, meeting a lot of different guys from across the country, understanding like what it truly meant to like study film and like put plays together that were based off of defenses, reading defenses. And so when I came back that junior year and Murphy and I were kind of brainstorming some new plays and stuff, I was like, hey, I learned all this kind of stuff over at camp. Like, how about we do some of this and that? And he was just like, awesome, dude. He was like, absolutely. That sounds awesome.
Oh, wow.
Like he was very collaborative. Like, he's just such a great coach. And so went through that my whole junior year. We won state. Then the following year, that junior year I had a decent statistical year, but nothing like compared to like the top QBs in the country. YouTube wasn't really a thing at the time. Like, it was still hard to get recognized unless you were putting up big numbers. So my dad and I put together a list of schools that I would love to go play for in college. And it could be like, the top 10 schools.
Yeah.
Like, and so we were like, these would be really cool. So let's go figure out how to go to their camp. Let's introduce ourselves to the coaches. Let's let them see you play in person. And if they would give you a legitimate like tryout to see what that would look like. So we went to we wrote a bunch of letters to a number of different schools. I'm not going to say who all of them are because some of them said, no, we're not interested. Obviously CU, CSU, Stanford was one.
Wow.
And the University of Texas was another. Those were the 4 camps that I went to before my senior year. And I went out to the Stanford camp. I mean, Palo Alto, you were talking about it earlier, it's a gorgeous campus. I mean, like, there's no better place to be doing anything in life than Palo Alto, unless you're skiing. And met a lot of the coaches that were out there, asked them to like give me a legitimate like look at if I was capable of playing here. And the bottom line was yes, but scholarships for your position have already been kind of thrown out there. So you could come out and walk on, and it's likely you could earn a scholarship, but that's where we are right now. And same thing happened at University of Texas. We went into, at the time it was Mac Brown was coaching that team. Yeah. And Major Applewhite was the quarterback coach. And I went out there, and we had, went out there a day early, went and met with Coach Brown, and was just like, hey, like through this camp, like give me a legitimate like look, not just like teaching some kid that paid to come to camp how to do certain things that are football, but like, would this kid actually like have a chance to come play for us? And so at the end of that camp, he said very similar things to what happened when I went to Stanford. Like, you could play here, but we already have those scholarships sent and filled. You could come and walk on and be a preferred walk-on and possibly earn a scholarship for your sophomore year. And I was like, okay. At the time I had a scholarship offer from CSU already.
Okay.
So I was like, those two, I was like, I'm definitely probably going to take a scholarship over not. There was a lot of things that were happening with CU at the time. Gary Barnett was the head coach, and he was going through that huge scandal.
Yep.
And it felt like at the time, rightly so, because that took a large part of their day-to-day to try to address all of that investigation or whatever was happening. They didn't have a lot of time to dedicate towards me, and the same time that like somebody like Sonny Lubick coming down to have dinner with my family. So, and that's how that whole thing came to pass too with Sonny is they had asked if they could come down to have a conversation with me and my family at our house. And we had dinner with Sonny and Mick Delaney, and that's where they were like, we want you to come play with us, and we want you to give you a full scholarship. And I was like, man, this doesn't get better of just some kind of Division I program coming into your house and telling your mom, like, your son is who we want to, stick our future with. So I didn't commit on the spot, but I was very excited to, the whole recruiting aspect of it was that whole piece of it happened before my senior year. And then I committed right before the start of my senior year, because I was like, anything could happen.
Right.
I could get hurt, and then they may pull the offer, so it was like, if I got hurt, if I accept this offer and I get hurt, is the offer still good? And they were like, yeah, like we'll still honor the offer. We'll rehab you and get everything ready so that you can come back. And some kids actually had that happen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how the whole thing got started at CSU.
Wow. We were talking about this before we hopped on is, my journey as a tennis player was not recruited. I took a gap year after high school, trained for 13 months, changed my body. And, I went on a couple like visits my senior year, and I had a couple buddies, one who played at Arapahoe High School who ended up going to Northern Colorado. And I went up with him and basically played a practice match with someone that was currently on the team, and I just got blown off the court. And at that point, Grant, I was 5'10", probably 300 pounds. And the coach at the time was just like, said kind of the same thing, like a Stanford or a UT, but it was like, you could walk on, but all of our scholarships are filled. And so that's when I took a gap year and spent some time with two coaches from Poland. They spoke 2 words of English, which was run and the S word. And I share it as a parallel because, at that point you kind of put in all that work to have an assurance of, listen, you've dealt with injuries in the past. You didn't like to get hit. You wanted someone to say, hey, if things blow up my senior year, I want some stability here. And 2, it's awesome when you have the head coach in your living room and that rapport and trust building is starting to happen. that's unbelievable. But from my point of view, it was kind of surreal for me to think back to taking that risk of walking on. You know, financially, my parents didn't have the money to pay for school. So I took out a student loan my first year, and I told my dad, I'm like, just let me run with this for 1 year. And if I can get a scholarship, let me stay in school. And he's like, done. And I'll never forget, it was the summer after my freshman year. I played the Colorado State Open, and then I played the Northern Colorado Open. I got to the semifinals of the Colorado State Open, and then I won the Northern Colorado Open. A call from my college coach the night that I won the Northern Colorado Open, and they said 75% ride scholarship and then 25% academic, because I was able to tap into that. And I basically took a journey of development. And I want to hit your brain on this because I think we cross paths a little bit with our development and some of the high performance training. I got to spend some time with a guy by the name of Lauren Landau.
Oh, yeah.
And Lauren at the time was working with a guy named Kellen D'Amico, who's also a Parker guy.
Yep.
Won Junior Wimbledon. And I started learning about my body. And at my peak, man, my junior year of college, I had the most wins on my team. I had the most wins for a Division I program at UNC because we went from D2 to D1, and I was playing at 9% body fat. I mean, I was in the best shape of my life. But I'd love for you to talk about, you know, making that commitment to CSU. And as you said, college is another level of football. What were you doing after high school to get your body ready for that?
That's a good question. I mean, and I think back to like high school football in comparison to what you go into when you're playing Division I college football. At any level, it's a business. I mean, Division I college football is a business, and you know a lot of times the highest publicly paid person in the state is the college football coach. Right. So it's a serious thing for them to perform, and their performance relies on your performance. And so it's like, it takes a little bit of purity out of the game. I mean, I remember, I'll actually fast forward several years after my college career. I went back to Ponderosa just to like see the game. And I coached for a little bit after I was done. And one of the things I told those kids when they were playing some of their last games as a senior, I was like, guys, enjoy this because this is the last time the sport is really pure. If your coaches are not here to be paid, your coaches are here because they love this game and they love to coach. But after this, if you have the opportunity to go play in college football, like the purity of the game starts to wither away and the business of the game starts to come into play. And so it's taken very, very seriously, and has to be taken very seriously from not only like the players, but also the program. So the program sets you up to say, hey, we've committed to you. Now it's your turn to commit to us. Summer workouts are, you're voluntold to do what to do. Right. So that summer before your freshman year, it's like, you better have a really good excuse why you would not be here. You know, and we've got to know that you're doing all the right things, which some people said that they would be doing all the training and stuff. And then they come into training camp, like when football starts, and they're not ready, you know, as you're a freshman going into CSU, at least what I remember is like we showed up midsummer and we started doing conditioning and all the stuff that you got to be doing to get your body ready. And it was an awakening for sure. I mean, it was like, when I was in high school, like my coaches.
I was going to say, is it different than box jumps at Ponderosa?
I mean, and I will give a lot of credit to, what was his name? Our strength and conditioning coach at Ponderosa. He brought in like a program that was very, you know, Olympic lifting-esque. So it was a lot of like cleans, a lot of snatches. And so like learning the technique of a lot of that stuff is very transferable to explosive power in football. And there's not like a program in the country that doesn't take advantage of like that kind of Olympic lifting method, because that's what you have to do when you're in football. Now, as a quarterback, a little bit different because you're not like firing off the line all that kind of stuff. But you have to be able to absorb, certain, hits that are happening that are unexpected. And I think that kind of programming helps tremendously. When I came into CSU, there's a strength and conditioning coach that I don't know if I should name, but I was not a fan of.
Right.
And I just felt like the programming was not position specific. It was like what, and I think that nowadays there's so much more understanding of what strength and conditioning means for each position.
Yes.
In order to maximize the potential of each position.
It's not uniform. It is literally each movement of each position it's critical to know that as a strength coach, because my argument coming from another sport is a lot of the stuff I was doing in high school was cleans and things that were damaging my soft tissue as a tennis guy, because I'm pounding pavement. Yeah. Right. And already being bigger, I kind of had to learn by going to other resources to make it more sport specific. So it's interesting to have you clarify that each position in football needs a particular regimen. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I remember when I was doing strength and conditioning at CSU, like everybody was doing the same sheet, like playing the same sheet of music. And I was like, I even kind of recognized back then, I was like, shouldn't like each position be doing their own thing? Like a wide receiver should be doing something completely different than a defensive end, but they weren't. And I was like, what's the philosophy behind this? And then I was like, I don't have time to even ask for the philosophy about this, because it's like I got a full school load. I got like all that stuff started coming into play. But before that, I did in high school get hooked up with Lauren Landau.
Okay.
And I want to say I think it was before my junior year. Lauren was at Velocity Sports Performance.
I did my internship there.
Yeah, man.
And Hiker College.
By the old family sports complex, right? Right there.
Right. Yep.
I don't remember I remember my dad found him somehow. Through, I think, word of mouth, like somebody saying like they went to Lauren for like speed training, running training, stuff like that. And so I went to Lauren and like instantly loved his style of coaching. Like he would tell you what to do, and then he would tell you why you're doing it. Like just because getting bought in to what you're doing, no matter what you're doing in life, like that's half the battle, to just believe in it.
Yep.
And in order to believe in it, you had to teach me why. And so Lauren was always so good at being like, hey, here's what we're going to do. Even in warmups, like, hey, we're going to do some quadruped series in warmups. Like, and this is what it's doing for you. Like, this is what we're focusing on. And I was like, man, this makes a ton of sense. Like, this is why we have to take care of our bodies. So got hooked up with Lauren early. And then from there, that relationship started to grow. He went from there to, I don't know if he went immediately into Stedman.
Right.
But he was in Stedman for a while. And then after that, it was like Landau performance stuff.
Yep.
And I had always stayed in touch with Landau to do workouts when I came home, to go and because he was always doing combine stuff for guys that were going to go into the draft. So there was always a feel for guys that were trying to get into the NFL were always around Lauren. I knew that if I came home, I wanted to put myself in that space to like do some of the same things and trainings that all those guys were doing, and like taking care of your body and doing little things. He used to do muscle activation treatment.
Yeah, Greg Roscoff. Yep.
Oh, yeah. And I would, later in my career when I was actually playing at CSU, before every game, the day before, I would go down. I drove down to Landau's office in Dry Creek at Stedman, and he would do this like MAT prep for a game. And
those deep tissue massages are no joke, man.
Yeah, it was like, here's your towel to clench on and like bite on. It was just like, it was intense, but it worked. I mean, it was a lot of great prehab, I would call it, just like preventative, like trying to make sure like your body's going to absorb what it's about to go through and still be okay. So there was some piece of that with Lauren going into my freshman year of CSU and trying to get prepared. There was a lot of it there during the summer to go through all the workouts with all the other guys, start learning the playbook. I mean, it was like, it's overwhelming. Like, I'm sure I had no idea what the statistics are, but I'm sure the attrition from those first 6 months of guys that actually get into the program and start doing Division I sports, it probably doesn't last that long for everybody, because it's awakening.
I mean, just to get there, I believe the NCAA statistic for tennis is it's out of every high school tennis player, 1.6% of the participants go on to play D1. And I know football, it's around the same. And it's fascinating, Grant, because, here you are, you're a state champion. You come across one I believe is one of the best trainers in the country to get your body right. You get slapped in the face with the reality of D1 college football. But what makes your story so remarkable is the amount of time you waited to get your moment. I would love for you to walk the listeners through, yes, you were there as a freshman, but when did you take your first snap as the starting quarterback of the Rams?
Yeah, I was there as a freshman. First snap was 5 years later. I mean, I redshirted, and I went into a couple of games as a backup, like my junior year, when we were either getting killed or we were killing somebody else, and just like the petty snaps. But there was a lot of things that happened through the course of my career that made me question if I was in the right place. A lot of things that happened throughout that course that kept me going. One of them was always, it's definitely hard to walk away from a scholarship and just be like, hey, I'm going to go figure out how to pay for my own college. So that was a factor, but that was not a huge factor. I loved the game. I mean, I really, really wanted to play, and I was willing to work really hard for it. So I mentioned like Lauren being really, really good at explaining things without me asking.
Right.
And it put me in a position where I loved to understand the meaning behind what we were doing. And so if there was ever a moment where I wasn't sure through other coaches, I would always just ask. And maybe I didn't ask in the right ways. And maybe it felt like the way that I was asking felt confrontational. But I think that, there was certain pushback at times to be like, almost like a parent tells his kid to do something. Oh, it's because I said so. Just stop asking questions.
Right.
And I get that now, but at the time I was just truly trying to understand, like, hey, if we're doing this, like, why can you, why is that part of it important? Like, and it's just like, why do you need to know? And I'm like, well, I kind of would like to understand the whole scheme of this so that I can buy into it. And so that I can also be somebody who's telling my guys on the field, like, hey, do you understand why we're doing it this way?
Yeah.
Like, I know you don't want to do it, but this is what we're doing, and I'm going to explain you why we're doing it. Like, a quarterback should be able to do that. But if I can't explain that because you can't explain that, or you don't want to explain that to me, like, that creates a little bit of contention in the relationship. And that there was a lot of that in the first few years of CSU. I mentioned, like, I played 3 years under Sonny. Sonny was awesome. I mean, everybody has their own Sonny Lubick impression, right? I mean, like, he's a guy, like, you gotta be a guy, you gotta be, all this. Sonny was awesome. He was the ultimate player's coach. I mean, you wanted to lay down your life for Sonny and go out there and play your life out. Late 90s, early 2000s is when Sonny had, like, immense success, right? They were going to bowl games. They were 10-win seasons. They were top 20 teams. Yeah, Bradley Van Pelt and, Matt Newton and Anthony Hill, Moses Moreno, I mean, to name a few. And just all these incredible names that went through the program. And coaches. I mean, Sonny was always there, but there was a lot of coaches that were a part of that success. And like any assistant coach, especially at CSU, like, CSU is not your end-all be-all as an assistant coach.
Right.
I love the program to death, but,
stepping stone.
It's been even as a head coach. I mean, there's like Jim McElwain that came through that had a couple of really nice seasons, and he went to go be the head coach of Florida, right? Yep. He wants to go be in the SEC. Well, the Mountain West is not like winning, national championships. So nothing to do with CSU, but that's just the conference they play in. And so as an assistant coach, I think through the late 90s, early 2000s, like, you get your shot to go somewhere else because you've had a lot of success in CSU, and that's what you go do. So we had, like, Steve Fairchild was one of those. That he was an offensive coordinator in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he went on to go be a offensive coordinator in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, for a while.
Yep.
A number of different coaches were in that same regard where they went on to be bigger head coaches, assistant coaches in the NFL, all that.
So you saw a lot of transition throughout your time at CSU.
That was, well, yeah, I did. And I'm kind of leading into that where the backfill of those coaches with coaches that I think ultimately led to Sonny's downfall. You know, this is probably going to, you know, not be a hot topic for anybody who's listening that really like pays attention to a lot of that stuff. But, you know, Sonny surrounded himself with some guys that I think did not do him the right services. You know, I mean, and those were the guys that like I said, I kind of had butted some heads with, you know, in just trying to understand the scheme of certain things, offensive or defensive, you know, and it was just like, it sowed a relationship between me and some of those coaches that was not beneficial for me to be able to get snaps sooner, you know. And, you know, I was a stubborn kid. I was hard-headed, you know, and I was an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid, chock full of testosterone and playing this contact sport. I'm like, it's like I have a sense of aggression about that stage in my life where, you know, I'm sure that if something rubbed me the wrong way, like I'm going to let you know it.
Right.
And maybe I handled those situations probably in a poor fashion, but with some of my, I would hope that some of the 40 to 50-year-old coaches that we had at the time feel the same way. I would hope that they would look back on some of those interactions and say maybe we would have handled things a little bit differently. So,
and listen, I mean, no situation's perfect.
No.
And I think it's fair to say that you were willing to tolerate some things that maybe made you scratch your head more often than not because you loved the game of football and you were driven. But I mean, that moment, Grant, where you do take the first snap, I gotta have you walk us through what that moment meant to you. And I know at the time you weren't playing for Sonny, but what was, maybe after you tell us about that first game, what was your first interaction with Sonny after that game? Did he call to congratulate you or anything like that? I would love for you to know that you weren't playing yet, to then you're there. And I know it was a grind to even win the job that year. It was a grind. It came down to like a couple days before the first game.
I know.
But I'd love for you to speak us through that, man.
Yeah. You know, my third year, I don't know exactly the conversations that would happen, but like Sonny was retired. And I say that for the listeners to say, you can't see the quote unquote retired, because I think that he was somewhat forced out. I think that, you know, through list, I went to his press conference of when he said that he was leaving. And it was very clear, like the back of house conversations where you gotta get rid of some of your guys. Like you gotta replace some of these assistant coaches, or like we gotta say goodbye. And he wouldn't do it. He was like, I'm not getting rid of my guys. These are my guys. You know,
Loyal.
hats off to him for being loyal, right? I mean, there's something to applaud there. But he didn't want to do it, you know, and it's at that stage in his career, he was just like, I'm not going to restart with new guys. I'm like, it's me, it's either all of us or none of us. So, so that whole transition happened. And I would say before that, if that hadn't happened, I think if the transfer portal were a thing, I probably would have jumped into the transfer portal after that would have been my redshirt sophomore year.
Okay.
Right before Sonny had left. Cause I was like, I don't think my future's here. And I had a lot of questions about that. And so, you know, at the time, if you were going to transfer, you had to take a year of eligibility away. And all of a sudden now you're a senior and you don't know, you know? So I was like, I'm going to bite the bullet right now. And then all that happened. And it was like, okay, now there's a new sense of excitement. It's almost like we're freshmen going into a new program. Who's it going to be? Who's going to be the guy? And I kind of ironically, like I really wanted it to be Steve Fairchild because he was like NFL coach, used to be a part of a lot of that success in the late 90s and early 2000s at CSU. And then, and it ended up being Steve Fairchild. And I remember the first offensive coordinating meeting that we had. He was the head coach, but he was very offensive minded. And he was previously a quarterback coach. It was like you had three-headed dragon in your room. You had the head coach, you had the offensive coordinator, and a quarterback coach all rolled into one person. Now, they had an offensive coordinator that was a different name, and they had a quarterback coach, but the trump card was Steve Fairchild. He was the guy.
Right.
And we went through like just watching film and going through offenses and reading defensive stuff, and I was like, holy, like this is a whole new world. He was bringing NFL type mentality to CSU, and I was like, let's go. I'm all about it. And at the time, it was me and Billy Ferris, and I was Billy's backup, and there was a few other guys in the room. I know something happened between those coaches because they knew each other. Like Steve knew Sonny, and Steve knew the rest of that whole coaching staff, and rightly so. They'd go, "Hey, what am I walking into? What kind of recruits do we have? What kind of kids do we have?"
Right.
And with all the different headbutting that I probably had with certain guys, I don't think that my report card was that favorable. That conversation actually came out at the end of my junior year. Steve Fairchild came in, won the starting spot my junior year. We went through that whole year, which was a year in itself. But when it was Billy was then gone, I was the next up. I was like, here we go. Like, I'm taking this mantle. Well, they went and recruited a JUCO quarterback to come in and compete with me. And I was like,
yeah, like,
okay, like you guys don't, what I heard out of that, which was unsaid, was you guys don't trust that I'm the guy.
Right.
Right. Because you're bringing in a guy same age to compete for this job when we have other, like, it's not like we don't have other quarterbacks here.
No.
But it was like there was a legitimate fight for the starting spot. And I had, and at the time, again, I'm a 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid. I had resentment to that JUCO transfer, and he did nothing, right? It was just like coming in trying to look for an opportunity. But I was like, I butted heads with him so much, And I wish I hadn't. I wish I had a little bit more of a emotional maturity to handle that a little bit differently now. But we battled a lot, and I was just like, all right, like you make one even teensy little mistake, it's like, okay, send him in. Other one, go away. And I was like, man, this is
not
like my job.
You were threading the needle.
Oh my gosh,
all the
on
time,
eggshells, man.
Yeah,
on eggshells. And even when it was like I had a week's worth of really good practices, and it was clear that I was number one, it was like, have a press release, like put it out there that I'm the guy. And this was like months before CU, right? And so, but it didn't happen. And then it was like literally a week before, not even like days before the game. And I think a little bit is some strategy from Steve Fairchild's mind of saying, I'm not going to tell CU who my starter is, even though we know. Right. But I wish he would have just like brought me aside and be like, hey, here's my strategy. Like, I'm not going to name you, but it's you. And, we're going to wait until the days before the game so that they can't prepare for you. They have to prepare for both of you. And so I hope that that's kind of what it is. I don't know for sure. Steve and I really haven't talked about it. Maybe I should reach out to him to see if that was the case. But yeah, taking that first snap, I mean, first of all, I was so nervous.
More nervous than backing up Dustin?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a grander scale that I had never.
I mean, how many were in the stadium that day?
I mean, that was at CU. So the other thing too is it was a like interim contract year, like a contract negotiation year, where usually like CSU plays at what's now in Power Field. It was Mile High, like when I was growing up, and that stadium would be packed with CSU fans, right? And so this specific year, they could not decide on something in the contract to be able to have it again at Mile High, so it was at Folsom. So we went down to CU, and the stadium was packed. I mean, how much does it hold? Like 40, 50,000 people, mostly black and gold.
Yeah.
Right? We had a sliver of green and gold that they gave us. But, I mean, just like any home field advantage, you don't want to have the other team have any home field advantage, even if they're in state. It was like they gave us a tiny little sliver of green and gold, and I could see like my family up there and everything wearing 18.
Gosh, what did it mean, dude? Just coming out of the tunnel and looking around and just being like,
it's hard to explain. I mean, it's an overwhelming feeling. Like you don't have any time to really be emotional about it. Because it's like we've been preparing. We've been spending every waking moment preparing for this game.
It's a business. Yeah.
It's a business.
Yeah.
You're here to execute. You're here to do a job, right? And if you do your job well, like we know that we can beat this team. We had a great game plan to set up. I mean, I think on that opening drive we scored. I was so nervous. I remember throwing up before the game. Like in the locker room, I was like, I just like got to get some of these nerves out. And I was like in the bathroom gagging myself. And so after that, I did feel a little bit better. But as I ran out, I was like, I can't believe I'm in this position, but I have literally no time to truly bask in it and enjoy it, because it's like, all right, coin flip, here we go. You guys get the ball first. Let's do this. So, it was very surreal. I mean, I started calling plays and calling the cadence on the line, and it was just like the place was so loud. We knew it was going to be loud too, so we had a lot of like hand signals and foot signals and all these different things that we had put in to make sure like guys knew like what I was trying to say and like all this kind of stuff. And yeah, we marched right down the field and scored that first drive. And it was, what was really great was to hear the quietness of the crowd after that first drive. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. This worked out really well. Like, we're ready.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm ready. Like, I'm completing passes and throwing touchdowns. It was fun. And I was just like in the moment, just living in the moment, just loving it.
Yeah. And it just had to be surreal for you, one, to not only have that be your first snap after waiting 5 years, but two, have it be against another in-state school with your family present and really in an environment, for all practical purposes. I don't know where the rivalry was at that point, but I believe that CU, for the most part, has dominated that rivalry. And gosh, to have that be your first win, what was it like in the locker room afterwards?
It was crazy. I mean, we had known that we'd never won in Folsom. Or no, it had been like 20 years since we had won in Folsom. It was a long it was
time.
like,
yeah.
And I think the last time we won was 1986 before that, which was the year that I was born. And they made a little funny little tie to that. Like, hey, the year that he was born is the year that we, whatever. And, but I remember like microphones and cameras in my face afterwards, and like Woody Page,
Yeah.
Denver Post coming up and like asking me these questions. I'm like, man, you're Woody Page. Nice to meet you. This is cool. I was all smiles. I'm sure that there's some like crappy YouTube footage of me like just all smiles. I mean, just on cloud nine. I mean, it was just a absolute highlight of my career to know that we went into Folsom and beat them handily. Like, there was not a moment where we were like, maybe we might lose this game. It was like we scored, and then we scored, and then we scored, and then we intercepted, and then they scored a couple times. And it was like, at the end of it, it was like 20, I think it was 24-16. But that score represents like a much closer game than it actually was.
Right.
But afterwards, it was just like all these cameras were, and like my phone was blowing up with text message from guys that I hadn't heard from in years, like since high school, guys that were just like, hey, I didn't even know you were starting. Yeah. Watched you on TV and all this kind of stuff. And it was cool. I mean, it was very, very cool. I felt like I lived in the moment and like really, really basked into that.
Yeah, it's, for me, again, another way that we've connected is, as I mentioned before hopping on, is I followed all those years that you had to sit. I followed the journey of some of the folks that you were interacting with that I came across with Lauren Landau and MAT. And, I'm all about the underdog story. I am all about the core of a why, because I believe if you have a strong established why, it can overcome any how. And there's just not a lot of guys that have come from Parker, Colorado that have done, really amazing athletic feats. And when I saw that, it motivated me. And at the time, because I took that gap year, I was in my senior year of college and playing the best tennis of my life in the best shape of my life. And it just motivated the heck out of me, man. And I know that 13 years ago, this was all going down, but what does it mean to you to know that all those hours you put in, all of the coaching carousel, the the undermining comments, the whatever it is, man, like, what did it mean to you to know that you did it? I mean, to know that you were a starting Division I college football player, what did it truly mean to you?
Being in that position and everything that happened throughout that whole season, there was a ton of adversity that I faced before that, number one, with the coaching carousel and like waiting and like questioning. So it's just all this adversity of like constantly trying to resort back to like, why am I here? Like, why should I be doing this? Why should I care? You know, it feels like these guys don't care about me, so why should I care? You know, all this stuff. And then everything that happened throughout that season as well, another like layer of adversity that I just, you know, you just know that a lot of people don't get that gift. And I'll say it like as a gift, because it was really tough to go through a lot of that. And like my name had been dragged through press releases in the newspapers as like somebody who was like an awful quarterback. Like these are words from my own coach, right? Somebody who's just not prepared or whatever it is that like I look at it and I understand that he was trying to motivate me through this negative conduit, because he knows like I'm reading this stuff. So it's like, oh, well, like coach thinks I'm, you know, a piece of junk.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah. Like that never worked for me. I was always much more of a positive. And this is how I coach now. And this is how I try to be with my kids, like much more positive reinforcement in order to create like that really, you know, cathartic moment of realization, like you were meant to be here. And like, now I'm motivated to go do it. But the adversity that I faced then and all the different coaches that I've had in the past, like has been like people I look back with and I'm like, man, that guy was a piece of, like he was a terrible coach. Like there was an impact there that was such adversity that was a gift, because I look at some of my coworkers now and over the past 10 years that never had a sports background or never had anything like that happen to them. They don't handle the professional world in the same way, right? The adaptability of just being able to handle adversity and then say, you know what, that's not a big deal. You know, we're going to be fine. We're going to get through it. No worries. Because I've been through some, like, imagine like you made a mistake like that. Now the newspaper has it and they're going to just like slander what just happened and say like, man, Grant Stucker like did not get it done today at work. Like, and everybody's reading this and you're like, man, this is brutal. Like I read this thing the other day, and I think it's like a philosopher's quote that says, in your 20s, you care about what other people think, right? You have this big hurdle of you truly care about what other people think, and that's a lot of what defines you. In your 30s and 40s, you start to understand that like you don't have to care about what other people think. And in your 50s, you stop caring about what other people think. In your 60s, you realize that they weren't even thinking about you in the first place. And that whole trip was completely accelerated for me throughout my college career to say, you have to stop caring what other people think. You have to stop caring what's being printed in the newspapers. You have to stop caring like what even your own coaches are saying about you, and just do you. And I remember I had a realization, and we talked about like our cabin before we started going live here. I had a really tough moment, and I told my parents, like, I have to just like go to the cabin and just like unplug. Cabin is like on the western slope of Colorado. It's completely off the grid. There's no cell phone service. It's like there's nobody around you for probably a half a mile, and it's just like national forest space. So it's like it's a great place to just like be present, think.
Yep. Find alignment or get back in alignment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
I look back at that now, and I'm sure I scared the heck out of my parents, because I was like, I just need to go up there by myself and just think. And I'm sure that they were like, oh, are you okay?
Yeah.
Is everything all right? Like, do you need me to come with you? I'll just come. And I remember my dad like being like, I'll come up there and like, I'll just go do my own thing. And I had no intention of doing anything, like, cause I was struggling and like, I'm sure that they thought like, man, I hope he doesn't hurt himself or something, you know, but none of that entered my mind. It was truly just like, I have to go think about, do I really want to keep doing this? And I came out of that like, I need to do it for me. Like, I'm not going to, I resort back to the third grade self when my parents said, you can't quit. You know, you got to finish what you started. But I had to redefine my why, and I stopped comparing myself to other people and the successes that they may or may not be having. And I was just like, I'm going to do the best I can, prepare as much as I can. And as a 21-year-old kid, like, that was an epiphany for me, you know? And I mean, like, I feel like a lot of people just don't get that moment to truly stop caring about what other people think and just like live in their own space, in their own moment, doing the best that they can, no longer comparing themselves to other people, and just like living life as it comes. That's a lot of what resonates with me in my college career, is like just living through that adversity and forcing myself to redefine what's truly important to me and why I'm doing this. And yeah, that's been something that has been a big anchor for the last 13 years,
right?
You know, for all the different life challenges that have been thrown at me.
Yeah. And, you know, in my professional career, I've around a lot of folks that weren't former athletes and didn't quite experience some of the things that we're talking about. But I think what just resonated with me with what you said is life today, your ability to overcome the blows. And it's just amazing to me how this conversation started with, you didn't like to get hit, but here you are today, you know, 13 years removed from football. And I guarantee you probably get hit with something each and every day. If it's no different than my life, being a husband and a father of 3. I mean, life has this way to humble you pretty quickly. And I just think it would be really neat if you could package all of this together. And when it comes to, I mean, we're in 2023 now, and you and I both know that growing up as a high school kid today is a whole lot different than how you and I grew up. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff you're talking about with what you dealt with the media, social media is a real thing. And there's kids that are doing things that get posted and snapped and Insta, where kids are trying to get off the grid to figure things out. And some of them just wave the white flag and say, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that you've been able to get into coaching and give back to a game that's given you so much. And I love how the positive affirmations and the positive assurances is what you lead with, because you and I both know what it's like to get into that negative mindset. And if you have a negative mindset, it's going to create a negative outcome 99.9% of the time. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like you have to galvanize yourself with positive energy, with confidence, with self-assurance, because everybody or something is going to always try to take that away from you. Mm-hmm. So packaging this all up, advice would you give to either a striving high school athlete or, you know, somebody that is going through a tough time with, you know, career or whatever it may be, based off of you sitting on a bench for 5 years until you got your first snap after coming off of a high school state championship and all the things you've been through? What advice would you give somebody that is trying to figure out their way?
It's a good question. I mean, don't be afraid to fail. So cliche, but it's so true. I mean, you learn so much more from failure than you do winning any day of the week. I mean, I felt like just, you know, you could look back at my entire career and see I didn't have like the greatest statistics for anything. In fact, like my statistics like weren't anything stellar, and I didn't have a ton of wins, you know, especially in college. Like we went 3-9 my senior year. Is like wasn't a killer year. We won the first 3 games, and then a lot of stuff started falling off the rails for a number of different reasons. But failure teaches you much more about yourself than winning. I mean, it's just so true. Like you just really truly understand like who you are and how you're going to handle it.
Right.
And, you know, resiliency, I mean, that's how you build that resiliency too. And because if you think like life after sport, just like it's easy because you're no longer playing a game, it's not. Like life's not fair. Life is incredibly tough. I mean, I think in 2019, my sister's daughter got diagnosed with like leukemia. I remember where I was when, at the time, Sadie was 2.5 years old. You know, diagnosed with leukemia. They had to fight for life her to Children's Hospital because I mentioned they live in. I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast, but before we started, they live in Carbondale.
Okay. Yep.
And yeah, like you think life's going well, like all of a sudden, like you get something like that, news like that, like it's not fair. I mean, a 2.5-year-old getting diagnosed with blood cancer, like why, right? Well, if you ask those questions, like you're already behind on understanding, but and I think that's probably a little bit disingenuous to say. I take that back. You're not going to find the answer to that question, is what I mean to say.
Yeah.
You know, that moment was a huge moment for my family to say, like, okay, like, how are we going to handle this? And it was a massive piece of adversity that was like, our family has to get through it. And I think because, you know, my dad went through sport and my mom, you know, went through sport and my sister went through sport and my brother-in-law went through sport, and every one of them like had faced some adversity at some point in time. Like the only avenue that we could take was something of positivity and not dwelling on the diagnosis. Like I think I cannot put myself in my sister's shoes, but I know that she battled with the why did this happen to my child, right? Was there anything that I did? Because leukemia, like they really don't know what causes it.
Right.
She's like, what if it was something I did, you know, like being in my sister's mind. So, yeah, that was a lot of heavy stuff out of a question that was probably meant to be a lot simpler, but
sure.
I mean, the advice I have for listeners is, definitely you learn a lot more from your failures than you do from your wins, and be willing to fail, be ready to fail. And just try. Like this is a big thing that I tell my son right now. My son is 6. Right. And I always try to lead with positivity, and I always want to make sure that he just like puts effort into what he wants to do and like learns how to love the journey.
Yeah.
You know, because the journey is, if you can love the journey and like like apart from the destination, like that is winning.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I heard a quote as well. It was like amateurs try to do what they love, but professionals learn to love what it takes, or love to something like that. I butchered that quote. It's like, in order to be a real like professional about whatever you do, it doesn't even have to be like a professional sports player. It's just like what I do now for my career. Like I love the process. Like I love the ins and outs of like what it takes to put a deal together or something like that. And it's like the winning aspect of it, like actually like inking a deal or something like that. It's great, but it's like the whole process before then is just like, I love each step of what it takes to do that, you know? And so even in the professional world, like you just have to love the process.
Right.
You know, because how many times have you gotten to something where you have a goal in mind and you get to that goal and you've achieved it, and it's like 5 minutes of gratification, and then like
what's
5
next?
minutes afterwards you go, man, I thought this was going to last a lot longer. Right. So, you know, learn to love the process, you know?
Yeah. And the falling in love with the process, and I'm going to challenge you a little bit on failure, is if you're learning from your mistakes, is it failure?
No. I mean, you have to define what failure is in order to truly answer that. Right?
I think failure is quitting, giving up.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But being able to learn is essentially, you know, everything you said about taking action, trying, making something happen. Because if you're failing but learning along the way, you're improving, you're growing, you're getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a tough mindset to teach because, you know, I'm 16 years still into high school coaching, and I love giving back because it's such a important age to learn to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you get out of, you know, high school and college and into the real world, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have things not go your way.
Right.
And it's your ability to persevere and lean on those moments where you didn't give up, where you kept going, that allow you to do things extraordinary. And that's what leads me to one last question for you, Grant, is, I mean, here you are now, you know, husband, father, you got a, you know, beautiful extended family, and I appreciate you sharing about your sister, man. And I mean, that's a lot. And when I decided to start this podcast and I told you a little bit about the Built to Be mission, these stories are ways to help others. And if you're able to share it, you never know who it's going to resonate with, right? And it comes back to just, you know, looking at your whole career, whether it's, you know, professionally, in sports, as a husband or a father. What moment are you most proud of today, man?
That's a good one. I mean, you know, there's lots that I would say I'm very proud of. I mean, obviously, like doing some of the things that I've done in sport. I mean, like winning a state championship is great. Beating CU in their own stadium is great. Like those are proud moments. But I think my proudest moments recently, what it feels like anyway, is the things that not a lot of people see. And that's when, you know, moments I have with my kids that, you know, I mentioned my son is 6. I have a 3-year-old daughter too. My son is all boy. I mean, he's like, just like, he is a Tasmanian devil, all go, no quit, like until he closes his eyes at night, like unless we force him to close his eyes at night, he just like goes and 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 just like will not stop. I don't think he walks anywhere. He runs everywhere he goes. And I love it, but at the same time, it's like, it's a lot, right? And as a parent, you just like are trying to figure out, how do I guide this in the right direction and focus like his energy in the right direction? And he's a really, really good kid. But moments that I'm most proud of is when like I can teach him how to like handle his emotions. You know, like we as fathers to our sons, there is this idea that's in our mind of like what it means to be a father to a son. And, you know, you're ushering somebody like, this is what it means to be a man, right? And I did not necessarily grow up in this household, but my dad was somebody who always looked up to, but he had a short fuse and he had trouble controlling his emotions. I have seen I've been through what feels like a lifetime worth of adversity, and have seen like the way that my dad was, and then the way that I want to be with my kids, and trying to define and almost redefine what it means to be like the man that I want him to be, and being able to like have him look at me and listen to certain things that I say, and he's really truly absorbing certain things, and I'm like, hey buddy, like it's a superpower to be able to control your emotions and like just like find this sense of peace.
Yeah.
To where like if something hits you, like some outside force comes in and wrecks your world, that you can look at it in the eye and say, I'm okay. What's next?
Right.
Like that doesn't bother me. And like there's moments in seeing him get it, and he's 6, right? And when it really is cool, this is actually leading me to probably one of my proudest moments. I am constantly like trying to get him to regulate his emotions, to say like, hey buddy, like, I know you're upset. Let's try to control this real quick and then we can talk. So let's take some deep breaths, and every once in a while I'll get him to be like, and like actually use it. But a lot of the times he's like, I can't do it. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how you do this. But what happens is I won't even be in the same room, but I can listen to him and Riley, my daughter, like playing, and all of a sudden something happens and Riley gets upset. And she's a diva. Like she is like runs the house and she will let you know if she's upset. But Logan will go up to her and be like, hey Riley, let's take some deep breaths. And he's 6 and he's telling this 3-year-old to control it. And so something's happening in there where he's like, hey, this is what daddy taught me and it works. And so I'm going to teach it to you too. And so that I feel like is a super proud moment for me where I'm like, I think I'm doing some of the right things.
That's awesome.
But it's been a culmination of years of adversity and challenging moments and trying to understand how to handle it. And so, yeah, I think that's a big one.
Yeah, that's, I believe, just is the icing on the cake for me because, again, knowing you growing up, knowing your story of what you've been through, watching you not give up in college was such a impact on me and allowed me to have moments in my life where I kept going because I'm like, if he can do it, why can't I do it? And then to hear some of the nuggets on what you're teaching your son and, being a father of 3, I've had a lot of those special moments too, where I'd have to agree with you, Grant, that some of my proudest moments are when no one's watching, when life is happening and, your kids are living on a legacy of perseverance that you instill in them. And then also too, being able to, as a coach, have kids, call me 10, 12 years later, ask me to, come to weddings or baby showers, or I've had to unfortunately go to a few funerals, but just to know that I'm an impact, it didn't always start out that way. I was the big teddy bear, trying to figure out Parker, Colorado, but now I kind of put my hat on being able to keep going and that perseverance and that testament to what you've been through and what you did as a college football player and more importantly as a husband and a father and as an employee, and what you're doing right now is remarkable. So Grant Stucker, I cannot thank you enough for the time today and for coming to meet me here in person to have a conversation and being a part of the BTB project. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
What a tremendous conversation with Grant, and there's so much we can learn from his story. I mean, going from a state champion as a high school football player to going on to play his dream of Division I college football and having to wait year after year after year, and 5 years later finally getting to take his first snap and being able to be a contributor to that team, being able to do things for Colorado State football that not a lot of people have done. And it's just such an inspirational story. And I'm really excited for you as a listener, as my conversation with Grant is a 2-part series. This will be part 1, and part 2, we're going to dive into what life has been like after football. A lot of things that I've seen with athletes, especially after their college experience, is it's hard for them to keep their bodies healthy, keep their mind clear and concise. And Grant and I are going to dive into some of the ways that he's been able to pay forward what he learned as a collegiate athlete to what he's doing in the business world, in his family, and in his life. So stay tuned. I appreciate you guys listening. If this episode inspired you, do me a favor, like and subscribe to the podcast. If you know somebody that would be inspired by Grant's message, forward the podcast to them. Let them know that impossible is nothing. And it's stories like Grant's that will help inspire us and continue us to push forward. Remember, impossible is nothing, and take care.
You're told I'll be a harder temptation.